Hey there, Emma here, and in 2023 I hosted a painting challenge called Dogtober where we painted a different dog breed every day of the month. You may have seen some of the clips that I posted on Shorts at the time, just showing like a few little clips from each painting, but I've decided to go and pull out the real-time footage and share them this year so you can follow along if you'd like to. A couple of disclaimers/explainers. The point of the challenge for me was that I wanted to try and loosen up. I'm a realistic portrait artist, and so I gave myself a smaller size to work with as well as a time frame. I'm painting on roughly about A6 size paper, which is pretty small. In terms of measurements, that's like roughly 10.5 centimeters by 14.8 centimeters or 4.1 by 5.8 inches. And I also tried to set myself a time limit of about 15 minutes. I really wanted to challenge myself to loosen up, but you can approach this any way you like. Maybe you'll do it in a different medium or a certain color palette. The options are endless, totally up to you, but you're more than welcome to follow along, and these are kind of like mini tutorials. I do want to point out though that as this was unusual for me and a challenge to me, not all of them are that good. I really struggled in the beginning to start loosening up, and particularly struggled with the long-haired dogs. But you know, it's an adventure and you'll see me progress through the month and learn a lot. If you want to grab the outline sketches, I have put all 31 sketches into a document, a PDF that you can download from my website. I will link that in the description. You'll just need to pop your email address in, which will sign you up to my mailing list, but then you'll get the document with all 31 outline sketches, roughly about the same size that I'm painting. You're more than welcome to print them, trace them, size them up or down if you need to. I'll be working with my usual set of supplies and mixing colors as well, but I will talk you through the process as we go. Let's jump in. Day 13 of Dogtober, and we are painting a corgi. We're going to get started with our color mixing, and no shock here, another orange dog. So we are going to mix up some primary yellow and primary red. We basically need about 3 colors for this portrait. Well, maybe 4. We need an orange, we need a black color that we will mix ourselves. You can use a pre-made black if you'd prefer, because we're only using it in a few spots. We are going to need a reddish pinky color for the tongue, and also a little bit of brown for the eyes and perhaps some shading. So I'm going ahead and I've got an orange mixed up now with just primary yellow and primary red. I'm going to leave it quite punchy orange. I've now added blue to the other side of the palette. I'm going to add red to it. That's going to turn it purple, and then I'm going to try and neutralize that mixture by adding yellow, which will cancel it out. Popping that in now. A little bit more red because it's looking green. I've gone too far the other way. It's just a bit of fun and games. You know, mixing this color, it always needs some adjustment. Also fighting against some pet hair stuck in my bristle by the looks. So mixing that in now, and that is looking a lot better. We definitely don't need this much of it. But anyway, we will be all sorted. I've just added some primary red to my palette, and I'm adding a little bit by bit of that black color that we just mixed into it, just to make more of a muted, darker, reddy pink color for the tongue. I didn't want it to be too obnoxiously primary red. And we will create a brown later on by just combining a little bit of the black color that we've mixed with a little bit of the orange color that we've mixed. But we are going to get started with the majority of the painting now, and that is the body. So I'm dipping straight into some orange mixture and getting started on actually the tummy, which probably feels like a weird spot, but I'm going to quickly spread it over the back side. And what I'm doing is I'm going to leave a gap on the paper between each little section of the body. So it's tummy. I'm going to leave the section on the left of that, a little gap between it so we can see the hind leg a little bit more clearly. Bringing that down towards the bottom and adding some color there. That'll be where the foot is tucked in. I'm really enjoying this kind of looser style where we just leave a gap between each section instead of having to like separately go back and shade it later. We're going to do the same with the front leg as well. And also just varying up the color. So I just rinsed off and dabbed off my brush there for some more water, and that's just going to make this area look a little bit more airier. And then now I'll dip back into color and pop some of that down the bottom. And I think that's just a really fun, light and airy way to do your paintings. I'm going over the foot, very watery here, keeping them nice and pale. It's like they've got little white gloves on, these corgis. So I'm leaving that area for now and going in and starting on the ears. So I'm just going over like the back of the ear that we can see from the front, if that makes sense. And then for the opening of the ear, which is on the bottom left side, I've just put more water there to act as the, there's not orange fur there basically. Repeating the same thing on the other side, orange on the top / inner side, water filling in the rest of the shape, and then bringing some water down and around the eyes before switching into some orange for underneath. And really punchy orange there, then switching once again to more of a watery filled brush, and it's just creating this really cool effect of like lighter eyebrows and a lighter, chin fur, if you will, or neck fur. And it's just really bringing the markings to life with very little effort. So wrapping that nice and close around the nose, so we're excluding the eyes, the nose and the mouth, which we would normally do. Bringing this really, really pale orange down onto the chest before dipping into some more orange and wrapping that around the right side of the head, going back over the ear, the top of the head, between the eyes and the far side of the ear. And then bringing that a bit further down on the leg and wrapping that around the front paw, dipping into water and then filling the rest in there to soften it up a bit. Adding some more colour on the far side of the head to really define it there. Bringing the colour a little bit further down on the chest. Using a clean damp brush, I'm just going to swipe away some colour from where I don't want it before I lock it all in. Now, if you're having a lot of trouble with that process and it's just exploding out everywhere, give your painting a minute just to let the water soak in a bit more. It'll give you a bit more control over the wet on wet. Now with some more orange on my brush, I'm just going in and putting a few more details on a dry layer. So wedging a couple little triangles over the tops of the ears. That's just going to deepen them. I'm going to very carefully go in and put some colour around the eye. So just using orange, creating a little bit of a pointed up eyebrow on the inner sides and a little bit of a little shadow underneath it to recess it back in the head. Just going over that. Intensifying it a little there. Just going to push those eyes back into the head. And now we'll paint the tongue in. So a little bit more primary red in that mixture to brighten it up a tad. We'll just go straight in and paint the tongue. Tucking that up nice and close under the opening of the mouth. Lifting off a little bit of the excess colour. Adding a little bit of that colour to the black to get a darker version, and then just dabbing that at the top there, at the opening of the mouth. And lifting off a little bit of colour at the bottom. And now I'm going to use the same colour but very watered down, just to paint a couple little toe beans down the bottom. From memory, the reference photo I used, it had like some pink and some black toe beans, the little toe pads. And so I wanted to pop a mixture in there. Dipping into some Mars Black, pre-made black colour with my 3/0, I'm just going to paint the split down the centre of the nose and the nostril on either side. So our comma shape nostrils, you can absolutely use the black colour that you mixed. You'll notice in a lot of these portraits, so I grab a pre-made black and I feel like it just is a bit more concentrated than something I can mix and will allow it to stand out against the nose at the end. I've just dried that off. Now we're going to paint in the mouth. So I'm just going to go in with the colour that we mixed for black. And very carefully pop that in, making sure we don't cut the tongue off, and just tuck that in nice and closely around it. Give it a big smile. It doesn't matter if you get this looking quite watery the first time, you can always do another layer. And on the other side. So take your time with something like this. It's going to be really hard to remove black if it goes somewhere that you don't want it to, whereas the other colours are a lot paler. Just putting a watery wash of black under the snoot. I've also left the tiniest little triangles coming down from the top of the mouth next to the tongue on either side to be its two front teeth. If you haven't, or it got too blobby in there, you can always paint them back on with some white gouache later on. But dry that layer off now, and I'm dipping back into the black colour and going over the mouth. So you might be able to more clearly see the tiny little triangles at the top on either side of the tongue now. So really darkening that up with a darker sort of pinky colour, mixing some of the black in. I'm just going to tuck that right up against the top of the tongue. Create a bit of a wedge in there, rinse off, dab off, then just invite that colour down gently into some water to let that softly come down, and then just paint a little split in the tongue as well, little crease. With some watery black colour now, I'm just going to go and pop some of those little black toe beans in. I'm not going to paint over all of the pink ones I blobbed in, but just picking and choosing a couple there to vary it up. It's looking very cute. I love how it's sitting. And now I'm going to paint the nose in. So just very carefully bringing that down to a V shape towards the opening of the mouth. And then really carefully filling in the top of the nose there. Got a bit more water on my brush this time, but honestly the colour looks pretty much the same across the whole nose. It's so small. Doesn't really look darker at the bottom. I'm now mixing some of the orange into some of the black and just adding a bit more red and blue to try and get a brownie colour that I'm happy with. My favourite brown is usually from orange and blue. I'm just going to paint both the little eyes in now. So just really carefully, we've excluded them from our previous wet on wet layer, so they should still be very visible. And they are on slight angles. I think it just gives it such a happy expression. So filling them in really carefully. You could definitely be using a 3/0 or small detail brush for this. I don't know why I'm persisting with the size 6, but drying that all off. Dipping into some orange and just shading around the eye a bit more, really finessing now. We've only got a couple minutes left. Bit of brown, and just going to do a similar thing. Create a little bit of an eyebrow in there really carefully. Dipping into some of the black colour and just once again going in over this mouth. Clean up any edges that are looking a bit jagged. And then I'm just going to very carefully dot some whisker dots in on either side of the muzzle. Add a little bit of darker colour to the bottom of the nose. And blend it across the top with water. Grabbing my 3/0 now, I'm going to dip into some white and we are going to do some highlighting. So you're going to be very, very careful with your highlighting. We're going to dot the smallest of highlights onto the top part of the eyes and the smallest of crescent shapes along the bottom curve of the eyes. So getting up a nice concentrated colour there, just very carefully. Dotting 2 little highlights on the top of the eye. so cute. And then the teeny tiniest of little crescents along the bottom. Rinsing off, dabbing off, jumping into some brown, and I'm just going to correct the shape of the eye. I did paint them in with quite a large brush, so just getting in there and really adjusting the shape and making it all smooth around the edges. Being careful not to disrupt the white because I haven't dried it off yet. Dipping into some black, and let's pop some whiskers on. So dabbing off the excess on my brush to keep these nice and thin. And just very carefully pulling some whiskers out to the side, varying the length and the direction and the curvature to keep them looking nice and natural. And that is our corgi. I hope you like this one, and I will see you in the next one.